do is I specialize in working with remote and hybrid teams, supporting them in increasing performance, productivity, well-being, and satisfaction. And my personal mission is to reduce the Sunday scaries.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the WorkHappy podcast. I'm your host, Greg Kettner. Today, a good friend of mine, a coach, and somebody who helps people deal with burnout. She lives in Bowen Island, British Columbia, and we met actually. It was either through LinkedIn or we were working together for the same client back 6-8 months ago. And so, welcome to the show, Shauna Moran. How are you?
Thank you, Greg, for having me. I'm doing really well. I'm really excited to sit down with you and to just have a conversation. I really enjoy speaking to you. I enjoy the authenticness of what you share. And yeah, I'm really present right now and happy to be here.
Well, great. Well, thank you. Your accent does not sound Bowen Island.
No.
Where are you originally from?
I'm originally from the west of Ireland, County Mayo, if anyone knows it that's listening. And yeah, moved to Vancouver, coming up on 3 years next summer.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That is great. And why don't you share with our guest a little bit about your journey from Ireland to Vancouver, over to Bowen Island, and how you serve and help people?
Yeah, absolutely. So, little bit of insight into what I do. My business is called Operate Remote. And what I do is I specialize in working with remote and hybrid teams, supporting them in increasing performance, productivity, well-being, and satisfaction. And my personal mission is to reduce the Sunday scaries. So how can we create a workplace where people aren't sitting on their couch on a Sunday evening with a pit of dread in their stomach, thinking, ugh, tomorrow is Monday and I have to face this, I have to do it all over again. And I just feel sick about it, and I've been there in my life over the years a couple of times.
Yep.
And my mission in what I do as a coach, consultant, trainer, it doesn't matter. It's to reduce that feeling, to have people sitting on a Sunday evening looking forward to the week ahead because they're recognized, because they matter, because they have the safety to be able to speak up, because they're fully supported in their work-life integration, because they feel purposeful and they can see how their work matters and they're doing something that they love and they feel part of a bigger mission. And there's many ways of doing that, but that's ultimately what that comes down to for me. And I set my business up well before the pandemic. About nearly 5 years in business now, and which I can't quite believe. And it came out of necessity rather than this grand vision that I had. I was working remotely for a multinational company. I was working in Ireland and I was working across 9 different time zones with a team in 9 different countries. And it was one of the most magical experiences that I had, but it was also one of the most challenging. And by the age of 26, I had burnt out 3 times, all for different reasons, which I can go into a little bit later. But that prompted me to go back to university, and I had a degree in psychology. So I was always interested in people and behaviors and the way that our minds worked. But I decided, hey, this remote working thing is really complex and it's not making any of these feelings, this burnout, this isolation, these challenges with relationships any easier. So I went back and I researched innovation management, based all my research around remote teams. And that's where the seeds for Operate Remote were created. I had so many people reach out to me saying, Shauna, I have a remote team and I need help. And I started, having conversations with people and thought, okay, they just want advice. They just want consultancy. Here are the tools you use for your remote team. Here's how to run more effective meetings and introduce asynchronous communication. And yes, that was all important. But what was even more important was working with people to develop their own emotional intelligence, their own awareness, the ways in which they think or they see things, and shifting perspectives. That was equally, if not more important. And that's when I decided to go back and qualify as an executive coach. And that's what I've been doing ever since. And I pride myself on blending the two. I'm blending in the other part of that as well, which is the mind-body connection and really working more with the nervous system. So I do that with things like meditation, with breath work, really coming into the body. All of these things are really important. And over the last 3 years in particular, the area that I've really specialized in is reducing burnout, which I'm sure we're going to talk about today because it's a huge part of WorkHappy. But that is something I've just released a book on that, Managing Employee Burnout, how to create a happy, healthy, and engaged team. And it covers my own story and it covers the root causes of burnout. Because that's really my mission, is to help people understand the why behind it, because only when we understand the why can we actually solve the problem, right? So
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's amazing. And just you talking about burnout and purpose and finding happiness in work. Like it seems, and maybe that's why we're good friends. It seems like we're helping the same types of people. You do it more on the remote side and the burnout side, which is great. Now you said you're working in a multinational company, which we don't need to know, but was there a specific moment when you thought, this is it, I got to do something different?
yeah, there was actually. There was one particular time, and I speak about this in my book. It was the second time that I experienced burnout, and it was because of a leader that I was working with. And this leader had many great qualities, but also had a very unfair way of treating his team members, me in particular. So there was a lot of kind of unfair treatment. There was a lot of, stepping over, taking ideas. It was just a very toxic environment, is what I'll say. And, as I was going through that, I was working on my own from home. My team were all over the world. And I didn't really have anyone that was checking in on me aside from this particular leader, which the problem was with. And I felt so alone. I remember, my partner, David, would come home from work and I would be sitting there and I would be so upset. And it was, for me, it was the love of my job and the motivation of my job, which was so high, just started to completely dwindle. And I was just left with this dread and this exhaustion and this depletion. And, long story short, with that particular moment, it did get resolved in the end, and someone did identify that this was happening, and a really empathic, compassionate, intuitive leader reached out to me. And I opened up to her, and things got better. And it was, again, the power of a great leader, right? That can hold that space, that can identify that and see that things aren't okay. But in that moment in particular, I thought to myself, something needs to change. Nobody should be sitting on their couch on a Friday evening after a week's work crying because of the way that they've been treated by somebody else. Nobody should feel their heart beating out of their chest. Nobody should feel like they can't say a word in case of something happening. Nobody should feel like that. And unfortunately, people do feel like that. They still feel like that. And I've been very open around my own experience. And I've had a lot of people reach out to me to say they've gone through similar or are going through similar. And I have people on my coaching calls that are at that point. And it could be for many different reasons. And I am so grateful and so honored that I'm able to hold space for that and to, to create the impact of creating healthier and happier workplaces. And that's what I mean by that. Leadership is so important. It accounts for so much. Yet we promote people that are just good at their job and not necessarily good with people.
Yeah.
Right. So it's thinking about all of those concepts. Yeah. It's a big one.
That's amazing. And it's so great that you took a big challenge in your life to where you were probably on your couch crying and wondering, why am I doing this? And now you're going back and holding space for those people and sharing what you've learned over the years. And it's great. At that point, did your, between when that event happened, was it a long time before you decided I got to do something else, or did you start working on what you thought you could do better, find your purpose, and then
Yeah.
change careers? Or was it kind of like a light bulb went off and like, I got to get out of here right away?
Well, for me, kind of as it started progressing, I thought to myself, how can I empower myself? And I came back to knowledge. And knowledge is power. So in that moment, for me, that was the most important thing that I could do. And that's when I went back to university.
Yeah.
And I did that part-time while I was working. And then as I started to collect more knowledge on effective leadership and effective remote teams, these light bulb moments started to go off. So I started opening up my world to have more trusting conversations. And that's when that leader reached out to me. And that's when the decision was made. I'm actually going to move teams. I'm going to remove myself from this situation. And after I moved teams, that manager said, look, the empathetic, intuitive, amazing manager who I still absolutely love to this day and connect with her all the time. She said to me, look, I think we need to take this further now that you're in that safe environment. So, it can be very hard to see the wood from the trees when you're in that.
Mhm.
Sometimes it is just a case of, I need to survive the day. I need to survive the hour. I need to survive this meeting. But, thinking about number one, your support network, who in your support network can you trust?
Yeah.
In your family, your friends, your peers. If you don't, if this is similar to me, the problem's coming from a manager, go to another manager. Ask for confidentiality. Look at what the process is within your HR department. Reach out, like research that, collect the data on that, and have your support system around you, I think is the most important thing. And when I started researching the book, unfair treatment at work is one of the biggest root causes of burnout.
Yeah.
So it's huge. And actually, I think it was something like 60%. I can find the research and put it in the show notes. 60% of people have experienced unfair treatment at work in their professional life at some point. So
Yeah.
and the majority of that comes from leadership and managers.
Yeah. No, and I've experienced that. I know a lot of our listeners as well too. The old adage, we don't quit our job, we quit our managers. And I've had some really doozy managers like yourself. And I have some wonderful people in my life. Jordan Thorstenson was one of them. He was on the podcast as well when I was at the Canucks and the Vancouver Canucks. And we got to the point where there just wasn't the capacity to have outside sales reps because we were sold out. And I remember the day we knew that people were going to get let go. And I got an email. I was one of the people that had to go talk to the VP of sales. And I walked into the room and there was my VP of sales and my manager, Jordan, sitting there. And I sat down. I said, hey, what's up, guys? And I looked over at Jordan. He started crying. Right. So that's a truly empathetic,
Yeah.
kind, caring. He put people before profits because he knew that if he treated us well, we were going to treat our clients well. And it sounds like this is the person that you're talking about, right? Your mentor, it was confidentiality.
Mm,
They took time. You're still friends, and you're both better off for having gone through the fire. And now you're helping people, and I know that anybody who's listening to the podcast right now has probably felt that at some point in time. So
mm,
thank you for doing
yeah.
what you do. It's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you for creating this space and this podcast. And, as you mentioned that, Greg, I thought about, I know we all go through these difficult experiences and they're all different, and what that leads to is more empathetic leaders.
Yeah.
And that's a complete reframe of something that's very challenging. But the empathetic leaders, the ones that we connect with, the ones that really see us and help us reach our highest potential and have our best interest at heart in a genuine way, it's probably because they've experienced a not so great leader and they've been untreated fairly. So that's powerful, right? Because we're
Yeah.
all going to rise together and eventually we're going to create workplaces everywhere that are based in the heart. right? That are
Yeah.
heart-centered workplaces. And to me, heart-centered is empathy, it's care, it's looking at the human being rather than just the human doing, and coming together from that place to reach our goals.
Yeah. No, I love that phrase, human doing versus human being, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's amazing. I read a study recently that people now going through COVID and after COVID, people would rather be felt like their voice is heard, that they're cared for, that they matter, than a $10,000 raise, which is absolutely crazy. And I was just talking to a client several weeks ago where he, over the last, probably, I think the last year in 2020, he gave out bonuses to his employees to help them to feel good and the empathy and everything else. I think it was $35,000, and he has
Wow.
about 60 employees. And he said not a lot of difference has been made by throwing money at the problem, right?
There you
Which
go.
goes back to what to you preach and to what I talk about in WorkHappy. Put the people first, take care of your employees, and life will be better.
Yes, absolutely. And stop throwing money at the problem. Stop trying to tick the box. That's the
Yeah.
biggest thing that I really want my readers to take away when they read my book is, we go through the major root causes of unhappiness, of burnout, of stress in the workplace. And it falls under three pillars: the self, the leader, the impact the leader has
Yeah.
on other people, and the organization, how we're set up in terms of our culture, our processes, the way that we work, our behaviors. And the self piece is all around how we're able to regulate and manage ourselves and be self-aware, to understand stress within our body and our mind and be able to take action. And what I found time and time again is that, the wellness industry is absolutely huge, and companies are spending thousands, if not millions, on wellness activities for their
Uh-huh.
team, whether it's benefits, yoga classes, meditation. And it's not to say any of those things aren't good. They are wonderful, but they are not reducing stress.
Yeah.
They can make your team happy for a while, but they're not reducing that burnout. They're not reducing that stress, because the root causes are the basic principles of being a team and being an organization. Things like having clear roles and responsibilities, having fair treatment at work, understanding and having realistic workloads and timelines associated with that, having consistent quality support with your manager, not being in back-to-back meetings all day, every day, because then you don't have time to go
Right.
to the washroom, right? So like if your team are in back-to-back meetings and you give them a yoga class on a Friday, like it's not really going to help, because they're probably going to be really hungry in that yoga class because they haven't had a chance to take a lunch, right? So
Yeah.
it's really coming back to stop trying to tick the box, stop looking at what other companies are doing and trying to add more and more and more. It's not about more, it's about quality. And it's about going back to basics, equipping that leadership team. That's the biggest impact that you can make immediately. Are your
Yeah.
leaders aware of how to have coaching conversations? That's going to help. That's going to dramatically reduce stress.
Absolutely. And the communication and the compassion and the caring is so very important. If people are, on the treadmill listening to this, or in the car, or sitting on the couch, and they are experiencing burnout and they're not a leader, what would be one or two suggestions for them to start this journey to leaving burnout behind?
Yeah. Yeah. Great question, Greg. And unfortunately, there isn't any one size fits all. It really is an individual case, and depending at what stage of burnout that you are at. But I think the first thing is, and this is applicable to everyone, it's continuously checking in with yourself and creating a space, a time where you can actually kind of not take in the world, where you can just be and actually ask yourself, whether it's connecting to the breath, whether it's being in your body, whatever it is, maybe it's when the alarm goes off, how am I feeling today? How am I doing today? What do I need today? Simple questions, basic, but coming back into that moment just with ourselves, and it can take 3 seconds. Again, coming back into the breath, all it takes is 3 strong, deep breaths to support us in regulating our nervous system. So if we can do that throughout the day, what we're doing is we're actually becoming more knowledgeable around our own minds and our bodies and our energy and our own stress cycle. So burnout happens when stress happens, and stress is normal for all of us, and stress can be good. But burnout happens when the stress cycle isn't completed. So, for example, I moved house 3 months ago, and I needed a level of stress to get me through that move, to unpack, to get settled, to do all of that. And that stress was good, but I needed to complete that stress cycle. So I needed to wind down and rest and digest and come back into a state of relaxation for a couple of days after that. If I had kept going and maybe decided to paint the house or, start a renovation project and kept going, that stress cycle wouldn't have been completed and I would have burnt out. So I would have kept going and going. So understanding our systems, really, really important. And asking yourself, what do you need today? The basics. It could be the lunch break away from the desk. It could be some fresh air. It could be an extra hour in bed. You go to bed earlier tonight. What is it that you need, that your system needs? I had a client today and, I asked him, how are my energy levels today? What are your energy levels like? And he said, it's a 6 out of 10. So I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
And I said, what do you need? Check in with your body. What does your body need? And he said, well, I could go for a walk at lunch. And then he started yawning and yawning and yawning. I said, your body's telling you what you need.
Yeah.
And he was like, I did go for a nap last week and I just slept for 45 minutes and I woke up and I was like, yes, I am so productive. This is amazing. I said, right. Like, it's safe to do that. Like, listen to your body. Even if it is that 20 minutes of closing your eyes, we are human beings. We're not human doings. Again, the reminder that our bodies sometimes need that, and look at his productivity afterwards, right? And research shows us we are more creative, we are less stressed, we are more effective when we take breaks throughout the day. So looking at bringing in a break. And the final thing that I would say is knowing what your capacity is and your workload. What happens, and I find with a lot of people, is they're so overwhelmed with the amount of work, the volume of work that they have. It's living in their head, it's on pieces of paper, it's on a computer, and it's everywhere, and it's hard to even know where to focus. So creating a centralized place for that, whether it's a project management board, whether it's a task list, it doesn't really matter, but creating a centralized place for that. And even looking at each task, breaking it down into how long will this take me? And then looking at what are the priorities. And if there are conflicting priorities that it isn't realistic unless you put in an extra 5 more hours of work, then you can be empowered to have a conversation with your manager and say, hey, I've put all my workload into this centralized place. I've put the timelines and the priorities here, but this is conflicting. I'm not going to be able to get both of these things done in this period of time. So which is the priority? What can we move? Right? So you're going to be much more empowered to have conversations with people that can support you in reprioritizing. And you're going to be much more empowered when you're taking on tasks or someone says, hey, Greg, would you mind doing that? Can you do that for me?
Exactly.
You can say, well, I can do that for you, but based on the priorities and my workload capacity right now, I can have that done by Friday week.
Yeah.
Does that work? Empowering ourselves. Really important.
I think that's very important. And I strive to do that. I'm still not, I'm there. I do have a task list, but I do have my sticky notes as well. But what I found as well too, that helps me with my stress and what I share with people as well too, try and take a half hour, 15 minutes the night before and go through what do I have to do tomorrow. For me, I hate paperwork, right? If I'm sending out invoices or writing contracts, not my forte, but if I know that I have to have an invoice tomorrow, I'll plan that out for the top 3 things that I have to do on that task. So I sleep better. I'm not worried about it. I get better sleep. I wake up and I'm like, I know what I'm doing.
Yes, it's so important.
Yeah.
There was a study done. I can't remember the name of the consultant, but it was many years ago. And this big consultant was hired into this organization and asked, I don't know, did you share it before, Greg?
I'm not sure.
Maybe you did. Maybe it was you that shared it, but he was brought into this company to increase productivity. And he asked everyone to do one simple thing, which was in the evening, looking at what are the tasks that I'm going to do tomorrow? What are the priorities, and planning that out. And it increased productivity a huge amount just by doing that. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of research on that too. So thinking about what are the 2 or 3 things that can support me in 2023. And again, it doesn't have to be huge things that aren't realistic, like a 2-hour morning routine. If that works for you, great. But for some
Yeah.
people, it doesn't. I think being realistic with ourselves. Maybe it is, I have that hour blocked every day for my lunch break, and I decide what I want to do in the moment, whether I want to walk, whether I want to nap, whether I want to, really slow down and eat my meal. I decide,
Yeah.
but that time is there for me to check in with myself and see what I need.
So important. No, thank you so much, Shauna. I really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to reading your book, Managing Employee Burnout. Before you leave, well, 2 things. I have the rapid fire, 3 questions rapid fire. And then I would love for you to tell people where they can get your book. And also too, for the people who are listening, whether you're a manager or a CEO or an employee, if you're struggling, you need to reach out to Shauna because she's an expert. She does it all the time, and she does it with care and compassion and kindness, and she's absolutely brilliant about that. So, but before you give your information, let's do the 3 rapid questions. And question number 1, and we're going to try and do this with 1 word or 1 sentence. But question number 1, when was the happiest you've ever been?
Landing in Canada.
I love it. I'm a Canadian as well too, so I get that.
It was,
What?
I'll just add, it was in 2020 in the pandemic. We didn't know if we'd get through the border. So
Okay.
it was one of those moments. We made it.
And you got here and all your stuff was stolen in your car and you got in a car accident. So welcome to Canada.
I know. Wild.
Okay, so I'm going against my own rules, but expand on why was that your happiest moment, landing in Canada?
Because I knew it meant newness, new beginnings. And we were locked down in Ireland for 3 months. We were supposed to leave in March 2020, and being locked down in Ireland just really reminded us that we really wanted this change and we really wanted this adventure. And we've been here ever since. Yeah.
Awesome. Question number 2, what is your favorite flavor of ice cream?
Honeycomb.
Honeycomb. Is that Irish or is that universal? I haven't heard of honeycomb.
Have you not? I wonder, is there another name for it here?
But
it's kind of those like little no, it's definitely here. It's kind of like those little toffee bits in them.
Oh,
like honey toffee bits. Yeah.
Ah, perfect. I get you. And vanilla, right? Vanilla and toffee bits in it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Perfect. And then finally, 3rd question, what is your 1 big goal for 2023?
Big goal for 2023. I have many things that I want to do. But I have 1 word, and it is expansion.
Expansion.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So with your business, with life, with everything?
Yeah, with my work, with expansion in my body physically, feeling more flexible, expansion in my own awareness of myself and my creativity, in my relationships, all of those wonderful things, my adventures that I want to take. Yeah, expansion feels like
that's awesome. And I've always resisted in the past, people like, well, here's my word for the year. And I'm like, yeah, it's kind of corny. But I'm now warming up to it, and I get it, right? And when you have that expansion, whether it's in your work or your life or your relationships, you just have so much more to
Yeah,
give back to the world, and that's what makes
absolutely.
both you and I happy, right? That's what we do. That's what
Yeah,
gets us up every morning.
absolutely. We have to serve ourselves and, make sure that we're in a good place so we can serve others.
Yeah, absolutely. And just finally, Shauna, where can people buy your book and where can they reach out to you? Like I said, if you're on a treadmill, in the car, walking, whatever you're doing, and you're feeling burned out, you're feeling stressed, you need some help, where can people reach out to you, Shauna?
Yeah, so any of the platforms, you can find me on LinkedIn, Shauna Moran, Instagram, Operate Remote, and you can head to my website. I have a lot of freebies there that you can download, whether you're a manager or an individual. I have, communication spring clean checklist. If you're a leader and you're trying to establish what the root cause of burnout is, I have a free 8-part video course that will help you establish what the root cause of burnout is within your organization or your team. So you can head to www.operateremote.com. And the book, you can buy it on all platforms. Amazon is, of course, one of the most popular, but I'd love to offer your listeners a discount on the book. So I can include that in the show notes below. So you
Oh,
can buy it
perfect.
directly from my publisher and you can get a 20% discount at the checkout. So I'll give that to you for the show notes where people can get access to that.
Great. Well, thanks again, Shauna. I appreciate you. I appreciate the friendship and all the knowledge that you've taught me in the conversations we've had. So thank you for being on the podcast and all the best in 2023.
Likewise, Greg, thank you for having me and thanks for facilitating this really important space and these conversations and making the impact that you do.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. Tune in again next week to the WorkHappy podcast, where we try every week to bring guests that are engaging, fun, exciting, and give us value so that we can all work happy. Take care.